first became politically active in February of 2011. Early in 2011, as Wisconsin became certainly a politically live wire environment. Tanya took lead roles in both the state senator and governor recall efforts, and was elected in dramatic thank you for her stellar leadership as chair of the Waukesha County Democratic Party. She was selected for and is a graduate of the highly prestigious Emerge Wisconsin program. In 2012, Tanya ran for the State of Wisconsin Senate, and she was fearless, as is one of our audience members today, taking on a long-term incumbent. Tanya's incumbent was Senator Glenn Grothman. Although she did not finish the race in a victorious number sense, she turned heads all over the state in terms of what an aggressive, highly capable candidate is capable of doing, even in an area that literally had its opposite party roots going back to the U.S. Civil War. Tanya has been elected chair of the State Democratic Party County Chairs Association, and is now on the board of on the executive board for Wisconsin Progress. There's more she's accomplished. There's more you will hear about this wonderful presenter. It's a great pleasure to welcome Tanya Lohr.
Hello. Hello. Very excited about having my music stand back. First of all, can we just go around the room just very quickly and say where we're from, so we have an idea of when we're sharing stories and asking questions, what parts of the state we're looking at.
Dodge County, Juneau, Wisconsin.
Reedsburg, Wisconsin, Sauk.
Here in Mesa, Maine, Grant.
Rock County.
Waukee, just north of here.
Rural Dane County.
Madison.
Coloma, Wisconsin, Central Sands.
Okay.
Oconomowoc, Wisconsin again.
I'm from Sunford.
Dodgeville, Iowa County.
Excellent. Pat, what county are you from?
Well, let me think. I'm from Washington County. The chair of our party is Tanya Lohr.
Right.
Hey, Pat, nice to see
okay.
you.
I'm here to provide support and evidence of what she's going to say.
Thank you. Well, it's just a pleasure to be able to speak today about something that I feel very strongly about and has really become kind of my political mantra, and that's the importance of red districts. And I'll be speaking today mainly about my campaign for state senate against Glenn Grothman, because I learned a lot about red districts in that campaign. But it's not just about running good candidates in red districts, it's about having strong grassroots organizations, it's about having strong county parties, it's about making a difference in red districts. And for too long, I think there's been kind of this, just ignore the red parts of the state, we'll just keep concentrating where we're strong, and we'll just try to grow from there. And I think that there's a different model out there, and I think the different model is getting pockets in these red districts and getting strong groups and strong leaders in these pockets and expanding from there. And I think that between working hard in those blue areas and then having these groups start spreading out in red areas, I think we have to meet in the middle somewhere, and that's how we're going to really change over the state. I have three very, very important roles in life, and unfortunately they never make it in the bio. But my roles are a public school teacher. I'm currently in my 18th year of teaching in public schools. I am a wife of a public school teacher, and I'm also a mother, and I have two 8-year-old twins, and I have 2 stepchildren. And in February of 2011, I saw all 3 of those roles take a major, major hit when Scott Walker dropped the bomb. And I'm embarrassed to say that I was not politically active before that. I always voted, I always read, I talked about politics, but as far as taking an active role, I saw that as something that my parents did. who were very politically active, and I felt like I was fulfilling my role. And when Scott Walker dropped the bomb, I realized that that wasn't going to be enough anymore, and that it was time to get active. And so one of my first political actions was actually helping to organize the Glenn Grothman recall effort. And although we didn't get enough signatures to recall Glenn Grothman, what happened was a very passionate, active group of people really linked together in different groups that had already existed in Washington County, had started to link together. And I made two very important decisions after that recall effort. Number one was that I was never going back to the sidelines again, that I was done being passive, and that I was in this game for good. And that number two, if I was going to stay in this game, I had to get trained, because I had no idea what we were really doing during that recall effort. And that if I was going to be active, it was going to be an effective activeness. So I was referred to the Emerge program, which is an organization that trains Democratic women for political office. And I was lucky enough to get in. And so I went into the program.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I have no idea what that is.
Sure. So Emerge Wisconsin is an organization that they recruit and train women to run for office. So we do a class or a weekend every month, and we'll have an entire weekend on messaging, on diversity, on fundraising. It's my worst thing, so I just kind of block that one out. Things like voter contact, how to do literature, things like that. And so after you go through the program, the idea is that you're best equipped to go out there and run for office.
Is your website or?
Absolutely, and there's a booth here, actually, in the next hallway down, and I'll probably be sitting at the booth after this. And there's information, there's brochures, you can recommend people for the program. Yep, and definitely there's a website and a Facebook page.
Great.
So I started to go through the Emerge training, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to run for office, and this is great. And where are we going to have to move to be able to do that? Because in our county, which is, sorry, Waukesha, I know they like to claim it, but statistically speaking, Washington County is the reddest county in the state. And I have Jim Sensenbrenner, Glenn Grothman, and Pat Strakota as my representatives. And I really thought, I'm going to have to leave here if I'm going to run for office. And then Glenn Grothman opened his mouth on two very key things. He put forward the bill where he wanted to have being a single parent being listed as a risk factor for child abuse. And as a teacher, it just hit me in the soul, because I know so many single parents are just fantastic. And then he voted to repeal the Equal Pay Protection Act. And it wasn't bad enough that he did that, but his quote to the press was, well, it doesn't matter if we pay women less than men, because money is more important to men than it is to women.
Really?
Yeah.
A real quote.
And I remember just slamming down that newspaper and saying, you know what? You don't get a free pass anymore. You don't get to hide in this district behind your numbers and think that you're never going to get called out because you're in such a red district. I'm going to run against you. I'm going to talk about what you're talking about and make sure that if voters vote for you in fall, at least if they vote for you, they're doing it knowing who they're voting for and what they're voting for, and at least they're going to do it with knowledge. So I decided to run. And I got called crazy. I was told that I was taking resources and time and effort away from candidates who could win. And I said, I don't care, because if someone doesn't stand up to this guy, I'm not going to have my daughter at home thinking that no one's going to challenge this. And in the end, when the dust settled, and my husband and I actually got to sleep again and eat and see my children, I realized that it was one of the most important decisions that I had ever made. Because the lessons that I learned in our super red district, I think are lessons that need to be shared statewide. And so today what I'm going to talk about are the four, what I feel like are the biggest reasons why we need to run strong candidates in red districts, and also why it's important to organize and be active in red districts. And we need to get away from this idea that red areas are just a lost cause. So my first reason, and I have a little PowerPoint slide thing that goes along with it. So my first reason is that running strong candidates in red districts is a chance to change the message and a chance to change the dialogue. In my campaign, I love this thing, we came up with this piece of literature, Let's Compare. In the inside, we had all of Glenn Grothman's crazy quotes and crazy things like, children don't learn before the age of 9, so we shouldn't waste our money educating them. Yeah, so we have all those lined up. And then we had like my much more sane things to say about issues like education and women and workers' rights and things like that. And so then we hit the doors, because I didn't have much money.
Pass that around.
Oh, sure.
Can I ask a question? Is he a physician?
No,
No, okay, there was somebody
he was
who,
a lawyer.
he's a lawyer, okay. 'Cause
Was.
there's somebody that's a physician that needs this.
Yeah, not him.
Thank you.
So we hit the doors, and we talk to people, and we say, what are your concerns about state government? We talk, and then we say, well, do you know what your state senator has to say? And we'd share quotes, and they'd be like, no way, just like you guys. No way, there's no way he said that money's more important to men than women. We say, yeah, you know, it threw us off too. But if you go to my website, which was on the piece of literature, you'll see this piece of literature, and you click on it, and it's all in blue text, and it will take you to his legislation, it'll take you to the newspaper article, it will take you to his press releases. And you can see that this truly is what your state senator is talking about. And that's what people started to do. They started to go to the website, they started to look at what he was doing, they started to talk to their neighbors, they started talking to their friends. And by the time we got to our first candidates forum, the only thing that Glenn Grothman wanted to talk about was that piece of literature. And he actually said in his opening statement that he had come to the forum because he wanted to clear his name because that literature was making him look bad. Which set me up to say, Senator Grothman, the literature doesn't make you look bad, your statements and actions are making you look bad. And now all of a sudden, the more he would talk, they'd interview him. And that's all he was like, wow, I'm really concerned about that piece of literature that my opponent is putting out there. And all it did was drive more and more people to the website. And now, in this very red district, what people are talking about is, what is our senator up to? And what is he talking about? And why does he hate women? But the thing is that when they go to those websites, or they go to his articles, or they go to his legislation, they don't just see him. They see all those other Republicans that are signing the Equal Pay Protection Act. And they see all of the Republicans who are agreeing with these statements that he's making. And so again, now you've got people in a red district who are starting to talk and starting to say, yeah, I'm a Republican, but I don't agree with this. And that's what a strong candidate, or a strong organization, or a strong county party can do, is you can start turning that message. And I think that's how you start to create those pockets, and that you can expand from and start changing the state. My second reason for the importance of good candidates in red districts is that it's an opportunity to change the perceptions about Democrats. I was on a door, and the woman says, you know, I don't vote for Democrats. I got that a lot. I don't vote for Democrats. And I said, well, you know, we're not voting today. We're just talking, and I'd like to really hear what you have to say about state government. And if you vote for November, that's private. That's you make that decision, but I'd really like to hear what you have to say. And so she started to share her concerns, and we were talking, and all of a sudden she stops, and she's like, are you sure you're a Democrat? And I said, absolutely. I'm the chair of the county party. I'm absolutely a Democrat. Why do you ask? She's like, well, you can't be a Democrat because Democrats, they're unruly and they're unreasonable and you just can't talk to them. And I learned, that's one of the joys of having done over 10,000 doors, is that I just kind of took a deep breath and I'm like, okay, why would she say that? Well, who was defining Democrats in our district? You know, she gets the Glenn Grothman newsletter, propaganda, Jim Sensenbrenner, Pat Strakota, maybe she watches Fox News, letters to the editor, except for very, very brave Pat, for the most part, are from the right. And so we've allowed Democrat to be defined by not Democrats. So why wouldn't she think that they were unruly? If you watch Fox News, we are, absolutely. And so I just kind of, took a deep breath and I said, well, I hope that you change your mind at the end of this conversation. So we kept talking, and at the end she said, you know what? I'm going to vote for you. And I'm like, that's great. I'm so glad that, we were able to find that common ground, and I really appreciate it. And she's like, there's more. She's like, I've never voted for a Democrat before. You're the first Democrat that I will ever vote for. And she was in her 50s or 60s. And just that conversation was enough to change a lifetime voting habit that she had had. But again, without that Democratic candidate, and without people working with the campaign, behind the campaign, making phone calls, that perception's not going to change. And so if we just concede those red districts, we just say, oh, it's not even worth it up there, well, that person's going to keep voting Republican. There's no opportunity to change. What I always told myself is, okay, not only is that a vote for me, But if she votes for me and like lightning doesn't strike her down and her house doesn't, burn to the smithereens, maybe she'll do it again. Maybe she'll be like, she was reasonable. I wonder if this Mary Burke is reasonable. I wonder if this Tammy Baldwin is reasonable. And now you've started to change that perception.
When she told her friends that she was
Yep.
gonna vote for you, probably.
Absolutely. I had a.
No, she wouldn't say that.
No, she would not.
You
do
never
that.
know.
I don't know. So I started doing, I was supposed to do
Very
my
high-minded.
cabinet, a Republican event a week. Sometimes it would take 2 or 3 weeks between them. But I would have like coffees at somebody's house who was a Republican. They'd invite their Republican friends. Those always made me nervous, but I did them. And then
How
after,
did it
at
go?
the end, really well. You just stick to topics you can agree on.
How did you get invited to a Republican house? How did you get other Republicans to come? Because up in Reedsburg, we've had, we call them rap with the reps, where we had Senator Erthenbach, Senator Schultz, Assemblyman Fred Clark, and Ed Brooks at the library. And for just basically a listening session. But that way we had 2 senators and 2 assemblymen, and they were from opposite parties. And we put 100 people in the room. And we sent invites out to the Sauk Republican Party, Sauk Dem Party, the Tea Party of Sauk County, and 90% of the people that showed up were Democrats, And the other thing I want, in 1 and 2, you say a strong candidate. Please define what a strong candidate is.
So a strong candidate is going to go on the doors, they're going to spread a message as opposed to just a name on the ballot, which serves a very important purpose in a red district as well. Like if you can't have
Opposed
someone...
doesn't help.
Exactly. But a strong candidate is, to me, not someone who's doing it for some personal vendetta. Like, it's somebody who wants to espouse a message. They're
Weren't
there
you?
for a purpose. What?
Weren't you doing it on a personal vendetta? They attacked your wallet.
No, I did it because I felt that there needed to be, the other side needed to be
Then why
presented.
didn't you do it before?
Because my eyes were not open to
Because it
what
got
was going
open,
on.
why? It got open because you just said a little while ago. You saw the cuts that your family was taking.
Right, so what's your question for me?
Well, no, on the strong candidate part, if you do the statistics, a high volume of assemblymen were city council members, mayors, city clerks, that. Then when you go from the assembly to the Senate, they were high assembly members. Walker was originally in the assembly, Dale Schultz started out in the assembly.
Right.
That's the general progression of a strong candidate to win. A good candidate, you have, somebody that's willing to go out and, first of all, just stand up and say, hey, I want to run. That's probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
I could say something about that. I've seen candidates in Washington County, and I've seen Tanya. Tanya had an organization. She had a plan. She had a committee. She had fundraising. I've seen other candidates who were content to have their name on the ballot. They got enough signatures, and they went around to a few doors, but that was it.
Right.
That's the difference, I thought.
No, I'm not knocking your candidate.
No, I know
how you
you're
ran
not,
or
but that's
anything.
the difference, that's the difference. There are some who want their name on the ballot, and they were, maybe hoping to get elected. Tanya had a serious organization, and that, I think, was the thing that made the difference. It was a team rather than an individual.
To me, like the reason for running, there was always that hope that I could win, and there was always like what my husband and I had determined is that we wanted to be in a position to win, and if there was like a "some women rapes easy" kind of comment or something like that, that I was right there, I had done the doors, the contacts had been made, but it really was going to take a mess up on his part based on the demographics in order for that to be possible. And so I really went in with the goal of, I want to change the way that people are picturing Democratic policy. I want to change the way that they're picturing Democrats. I want to change the way they are looking at public education, because people weren't getting, they were only getting one side of the message, and I just wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity to see what the other side was like.